Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has launched a, quote, ruthless review of how the military's legal offices are organized. Experts say that while there is room to streamline these offices' operations, the review will likely be used to thin out the ranks of military lawyers. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis joins me with more details. Anastasia, thanks for being here.
Hi, Terry.
What behind the headlines is Secretary Hegseth trying to do?
Yeah, so Hegseth says that there is too much overlap between uniformed judge advocates and civilian attorneys. And this review would address those overlapping responsibilities, maybe sometimes uncertain reporting relationships, and all of the inefficient allocation of resources across the military's legal enterprise. He says that the legal shops should be measured against one standard, and that standard should be whether those offices make the military more lethal. Even though the standard for military lawyers is legality, not lethality, because JAGs advise commanders on rules of engagement, civilian protection, etc. Sometimes it's just the legal advice is not how to strike harder. But we will see what happens when the legal offices are now measured against lethality and not legality. Here's Hegseth.
As you know, America's warriors are in the fight every single day, restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding lethality, and reestablishing deterrence under President Trump. We've ripped out the woke distractions, slashed the red tape, and put every asset back into winning wars. But one area still needs a hard reset, and that's how we do legal support in this department. For too long, over 20 years, legal shops across the services have grown bloated, duplicative. They've muddied lines of authority and pulled critical judge advocates away from what matters most, advising commanders in the fight, on operations, in deployed environments where seconds and minutes count. And that's unacceptable. In a great power competition or with any threat that we face, commanders need agile, independent, dead-on legal advice that enables decisive action, not endless process or turf wars. They need JAGs focused on warfighting, military justice, operational law, law of armed conflict, deployed contracting, intel law, cyberspace, you name it. Everything that sharpens the edge in large-scale combat. But right now, military lawyers are sometimes stuck doing civilian side work that belongs to general counsels instead. Bottom line, sharpen our legal edge to sharpen our warfighting edge. No more distractions, no more shortages in the fight because of misplaced priorities. Our warriors deserve legal teams as lethal and focused as they are.
Is he suggesting any specific changes?
Yes, so the plan would more clearly divide responsibilities. Military lawyers would focus on operational issues. That would be warfighting, military justice, operational law, and the law of armed conflict. Meanwhile, civilian attorneys would take on non-operational work, and that would include things like acquisitions, personnel issues, intellectual property, etc. So this split will keep JAG officers focused on advising commanders in combat-related decisions, while civilians will focus on civilian matters. Here's Hegseth again.
But right now, military lawyers are sometimes stuck doing civilian side work that belongs to general counsels instead. And that drains readiness and leaves gaps where we can't afford to have them. And that's why today I'm directing the service secretaries, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, through their general counsels and JAGs, and the SGA to the Commandant, to execute a ruthless, no excuses review. Scrub it clean. Cut duplication and bureaucracy. Clarify roles and reporting. No more moral ambiguity. Align functions so that military legal stays laser focused on warfighting and readiness. Let civilian lawyers handle non-operational stuff. Acquisitions, civilian personnel, IP, real estate, environmental on bases, litigation outside of military channels. We laid out our recommended split, military matters to JAGs and the SGA, civilian to general counsels, with room for limited shared areas like standards of conduct or FOIA and privacy, if it makes sense for the services. But the priority is maximum support to the warfighter. And this includes reviewing active, reserve, and guard components.
Anastasia, we're obviously in combat operations now. Is that what's precipitated this review, or are there other matters that Secretary Hegseth is concerned about?
I mean, for starters, this effort is part of this broader push to shift the department from what Hegseth calls tepid legality towards maximum lethality. But yes, the review comes as the U.S. and Israel invaded Iran, a conflict some experts say is illegal. The war is widening by the hour, and the Pentagon is currently investigating a deadly airstrike on an elementary school that killed more than 160 people. And early evidence suggests that the U.S. Might be the responsible party for the airstrike. It also comes after Hegseth fired top military lawyers. He labeled them as roadblocks to commander-in-chief orders, specifically orders over deadly boat strikes in the Caribbean. Lawyers within DoD's Office of General Counsel have raised concerns about the legality of those strikes. And those are just some concerns. Among other concerns raised were the legality of firing of probationary employees that happened at the very beginning of last year. But as he explains it, it's that over the past 2 decades, legal offices have grown too large, they're too risk-averse, and that they've been pulling military lawyers away from these warfighting functions.
What are some of the concerns that outside legal experts are raising about the review?
Yeah, when I spoke to legal experts, and one of them was a captain in the Army Judge Advocate General's Corps, he said that, of course, there is some truth to the fact that civilian employees and uniformed JAGs have overlapping responsibilities, and there is some work to be done in terms of separating those responsibilities. It's very possible that there is work being done that could be done by either or. So that restructuring and reorganizing could help. But the truth is probably that the effort is being done to get rid of institutional knowledge. The way it was explained is that there is a lot of institutional resistance within people who have been around for a long time during prior administrations. And that is a significant roadblock, as Hegseth described it. Because at the end of the day, commanders make a decision. The attorneys are there just to advise. Commanders can take that advice, or they don't have to take that advice. Attorneys are just saying what's legal or not, and it has irked senior leadership to an extent that it's possible that they're trying to get to kind of yes men. And this is according to the lawyer I spoke to.
So what do you think happens next?
So Hegseth wants the military services to have a plan within 45 days, and then he wants those changes laid out in those plans to be implemented within the next 6 months, so not a lot of time. The services could potentially come back with a much reduced JAG Corps. A lot of those positions are appropriated, so they don't have to fill them. If Congress lets them, they certainly can, and if Congress wants to stop them, they also can. If that's the case and there is a thinning out of the ranks, there is going to be a lot of kind of prioritization of what needs to be done versus what doesn't need to be done. It's possible that a lot of work will be put on civilian attorneys, and the Defense Department has been shrinking the size of its civilian workforce, so we don't know if the civilian workforce can handle the workload. Also, at the same time as this is happening, some of the military lawyers have been pulled to support the Justice Department. They have been serving as immigration judges, and it's possible that the Defense Department could detail up to 600 military lawyers to the Justice Department. They haven't so far, but that's how many Hegseth has authorized. Also, military lawyers have been temporarily assigned as federal prosecutors to support law enforcement operations in Minneapolis. So there are a lot of questions in terms of how this will all turn out.
That's Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis. Anastasia, thanks for bringing us the story. There's certainly a lot to watch.
Thank you, Terry.
You can find the full story at federalnewsnetwork.com.